The story begins on a bustling city street where a German shepherd named Max, age 5, male, sleek black and tan fur, bright amber eyes, wearing a red collar, appears out of nowhere in front of a police station. He's distressed, pacing, and barking, as if trying to communicate something urgent. Officers inside notice the unusual behavior and decide to investigate. Max darted ahead with surprising agility, weaving through the bustling city streets. Cars honked as he navigated through traffic, his movements quick and purposeful. The officers, Officer James, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his mid-30s with neatly cropped brown hair, and Officer Lisa, a determined woman of medium height with blonde hair tied tightly in a bun, kept close behind. Their standard police uniforms glinted under the afternoon sun as they exchanged skeptical glances, their curiosity piqued by Max's urgency. Turning sharply into a narrow alley, Max paused for a split second, glancing back to ensure they were still following before disappearing around the corner. The officers quickened their pace, Lisa muttering, "What are we getting ourselves into?" James offered a terse nod, his expression a mix of skepticism and resolve. The pursuit hit its first obstacle when they encountered a locked iron gate blocking the alley. Without missing a beat, Max scaled the gate with practiced ease, landing gracefully on the other side. "Seriously?" James grumbled as he scanned the barrier. Lisa pulled a small set of tools from her belt, working quickly to unlock the gate, while James kept an eye on Max's retreating figure. They pressed on, the alley opening up to a crowded marketplace. The cacophony of voices and clattering of stalls filled the air. Max darted through the maze of vendors and customers, his path a blur as he avoided crates, baskets, and the occasional startled shopper. Lisa and James struggled to keep up, the tight quarters forcing them to maneuver carefully to avoid collisions. A suspicious figure loitering near a fruit stand caught their attention momentarily. The man, clad in a hoodie, seemed to be watching their pursuit with more interest than casual curiosity. "Keep an eye on him," James muttered as they passed, but they couldn't afford to stop. Max led them into another alley, this one darker and lined with graffiti-covered walls. The faint sound of rushing water hinted at a drainage canal nearby. His pace never faltered, even as the terrain became more treacherous. The officers exchanged another glance, this time tinged with both frustration and intrigue. Who was this young man, and what was he leading them toward? Max sprinted ahead, his paws pounding against the cracked pavement as the city began to fade into quieter industrial outskirts. The officers followed close behind, their breathing heavy from the chase. The streets grew emptier, lined with rusting fences and dilapidated buildings. Finally, Max slowed, stopping in front of a looming abandoned warehouse with shattered windows and peeling paint. He turned back to the officers, his sharp eyes urging them forward. James and Lisa exchanged a wary glance, drawing their flashlights and stepping cautiously through the warehouse's creaking entrance. The interior was dimly lit by sunlight streaming through broken windows, revealing a space filled with forgotten machinery and scattered debris. The air was thick with dust, and every step echoed ominously. In the far corner of the warehouse, huddled behind a pile of old crates, they spotted her, Emily. The 7-year-old girl sat trembling, her long, curly brown hair framing a tear-streaked face. She clutched her knees tightly, her tattered pink dress adorned with a small, faded teddy bear patch. Her wide eyes reflected a mixture of fear and hope as the officers approached. "It's okay, sweetheart," Lisa said gently, kneeling down to Emily's level. "We're here to help you." James immediately radioed for backup, his voice calm but urgent. The faint sound of sirens in the distance promised reinforcements were on their way. Max remained vigilant, standing protectively between the officers and the warehouse entrance. His growl was low and constant, a clear warning to any unseen threat. Lisa reached out to Emily, offering her a reassuring hand, while James scanned the warehouse for signs of danger. The tension snapped like a taut wire when the sound of footsteps echoed from the entrance. A man stepped into the dim light, his shadow stretching across the floor. He was one of the kidnappers, stocky and rough-looking, with a scar running down his left cheek. He froze at the sight of the officers, then reached for something in his jacket. "Stop right there," James commanded, his voice firm as he drew his weapon. The kidnapper hesitated, but his hand didn't stop moving. Max leapt forward, placing himself squarely between the officers and the threat. His growl deepened, teeth bared in a display of ferocity. The kidnapper's hand wavered, but he pulled out a knife, brandishing it with a wild glare. "You don't want to do this," Lisa warned, her voice steady but edged with tension. "Put it down. Backup is on the way. There's no escape." For a moment, the room was silent, except for Emily's soft sobs and Max's guttural growl. The standoff felt like an eternity as everyone waited for the next move. Then, with a sharp bark from Max and a step forward from James, the kidnapper faltered. He dropped the knife with a metallic clatter and raised his hands. Lisa quickly moved to secure the man, handcuffing him with practiced efficiency. James radioed an update, signaling that the scene was under control. Max relaxed slightly but stayed close to Emily, his presence calming her as much as it deterred any lingering danger. When the backup arrived minutes later, the warehouse was swarming with officers. Emily was carefully wrapped in a blanket and escorted to safety, her tiny hand clutching Lisa's. Max, though tired, stood tall and proud, his mission accomplished. The tension reached a boiling point as the kidnapper tightened his grip on the knife, his gaze darting between the officers and the growling Max. For a split second, the room stood still, the only sound being Emily's faint sobs and the creak of rusted metal in the wind. Then, in a blur of motion, Max sprang into action. With a fierce bark, Max charged at the man, his powerful leap knocking the knife out of his hand. The weapon clattered to the ground as the kidnapper stumbled backward, unprepared for the sheer force of the dog's attack. Max pinned him momentarily, his growl deep and menacing, giving the officers the opening they needed. "Now," shouted James, rushing forward with Lisa close behind. James expertly wrestled the kidnapper's arms behind his back while Lisa secured him with handcuffs. The man let out a defeated grunt, his plan completely unraveled thanks to Max's quick thinking and courage. "Good job, Max," Lisa exclaimed breathlessly, her voice filled with relief and admiration as she gave the dog an approving pat. Max wagged his tail briefly, his sharp eyes still focused on the subdued threat, as if ensuring no further harm could come to anyone. The sound of sirens grew louder as backup arrived, and within moments, the warehouse was filled with officers and paramedics. Emily, still trembling but visibly relieved, was carefully escorted to safety. Lisa stayed by her side, offering gentle reassurance as she carried her out into the sunlight. A short time later, Emily's parents arrived, their faces etched with worry and anticipation. The moment Emily saw them, she broke into tears, her tiny arms outstretched. "Mommy! Daddy!" she cried, running into their embrace. Her parents clung to her tightly, their own tears streaming as they whispered words of comfort and love. The officers stood back, letting the family have their emotional reunion, their hearts warmed by the sight. Meanwhile, Max sat quietly nearby, his tail thumping against the ground as he watched the scene unfold. Emily's mother glanced over, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "Is that the dog who saved our little girl?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes, this is Max," James said with a proud smile, kneeling down to give Max a well-deserved scratch behind the ears. "We couldn't have done this without him." Emily broke away from her parents and knelt beside Max, throwing her arms around him. "Thank you, Max," she said softly, her small voice full of emotion. Max licked her cheek gently, his tail wagging in response. News crews arrived shortly after, cameras rolling as they captured the heartwarming reunion and the heroic tale of Max's bravery. Reporters buzzed around, recounting the story of how a stray dog had led officers to save a kidnapped child, calling it a miracle of instinct and courage. As the cameras focused on Max, Emily's father stepped forward. "He's a hero," he said firmly, placing a hand on Max's head. "We owe him everything." Cheers and applause broke out among the officers and onlookers, cementing Max's place as the day's undisputed hero. For Max, the attention didn't seem to matter. All he cared about was that Emily was safe, and in that moment, surrounded by love and gratitude, he finally wagged his tail in contentment. A week later, the police station was abuzz with excitement as officers, reporters, and members of the community gathered for a special ceremony. The room was decorated with blue and gold streamers, and a banner reading "Honoring Our Hero," Max, hung proudly above the podium. At the center of it all was Max, sitting calmly with a shiny new collar around his neck, unaware of the spotlight, but exuding quiet dignity. Officer James stepped up to the microphone, his voice filled with pride as he addressed the crowd. Today, we celebrate a hero who reminded us all of the power of loyalty, bravery, and instinct. Max not only led us to Emily, but also risked his own safety to protect her and ensure justice was served. He is a true hero in every sense of the word. The crowd erupted into applause, many wiping away tears as James continued. Max's actions remind us that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. And today, we are honored to present him with this medal for bravery. Officer Lisa stepped forward, holding a velvet box containing a gold medal engraved with the words asterisk for bravery and service. Asterisk, she knelt down and gently placed it around Max's neck as the audience cheered. Max wagged his tail, tilting his head as if trying to understand what all the fuss was about. The moment was captured by dozens of cameras, cementing his status as the town's beloved hero. Among the crowd stood Emily, her parents by her side. Emily clutched a bouquet of daisies and ran up to Max as soon as the ceremony ended. "This is for you, Max," she said, placing the flowers in front of him and hugging him tightly. "You're the best dog ever." Max licked her cheek, his tail wagging furiously. Emily's parents exchanged a look and then stepped forward to speak to the officers. "We've been thinking about this ever since that day," Emily's father said, his voice thick with emotion. "Max has already proven how much he cares for Emily, and we'd be honored to adopt him into our family." The room erupted into cheers once more as the officers nodded in agreement. "He couldn't find a better home," Lisa said, her eyes bright with happiness. "You've all earned each other." The following weeks saw the community rally around Max's incredible story. His face appeared on local news channels and newspapers, and a mural was painted in the town square depicting him standing proudly with his medal. People came from all over to meet the dog who had saved Emily, bringing treats, toys, and heartfelt gratitude. For Max, his new life was everything he could have dreamed of. Emily's family showered him with love, filling their home with the warmth and laughter of a grateful household. Emily became his constant companion, and the two were inseparable. Whether playing in the yard, sharing quiet moments on the couch, or walking through the neighborhood to waves and smiles, Max finally had the family he'd always deserved. The story of Max's courage and loyalty became a lasting legend in the town, a testament to how even the unlikeliest of heroes can make a difference. And as Max lay in the yard one sunny afternoon, watching Emily play with her favorite teddy bear, he let out a contented sigh. His journey had brought him here to love, safety, and a family of his own, and he couldn't have been happier.